Hello, and welcome to another episode of Healing Art After Hours, where I upload videos of live Zoom creative workshops from my Healing Art Happy Hour meetups. I'm Shawna Robeson from Creating Space Coastal, and in today's video, I will be continuing to explore Neurographica inspired art by adding words like a brainstorm, or you might say neurographic storm, or as a fellow creative suggested, Neurovision, which combines the concepts of creative visualization and neurographic art. I love that suggestion. Thank you. Handouts for the introduction to this topic are available for download at my shop at creatingspacecoastal.com. And as always, happy creating. Now, you can use this, what I'm going to be sharing tonight, you can do this on any color paper. I'm going to be playing around with some black paper and the fluorescent gel pens. So, but you can do this on just plain paper. You can use pencil, you can use marker, you can use whatever you want. That's the wonderful thing about this particular medium. And I'm just going to grab for my little demonstration. I can find my Sharpie. I just use a extra fine point Sharpie a lot of the time. I'm just going to demonstrate a brief example of Neurographica. So a couple things. You start with an intention. So you think of something that you want to process, because the idea of neurographic art, a key aspect of it is that it helps you use more of your brain to work out something. So it also helps alleviate and relax out a topic. So whatever it is, something that's stressing you out, something that you want to solve in your life, it doesn't matter what it is, just have kind of an intention of what you want to think about when you're doing it. And then there are a couple ways to go about it. Using your non-dominant hand, which mine is my left, I'm going to basically just randomly put lines on a paper from one edge of the paper to some other edge of the paper. It doesn't matter where they are. So I'm just going to start anywhere and just kind of make nothing specific. I don't have a plan for what this is going to look like. Another way you can do it if you're not sure you can be random about it. Maybe you tend to draw straight lines or something and you just want it to be a little bit more organic. You can use a coin and then you just push the coin, and then wherever the coin goes, you follow. So you don't know where the coin's going to go because it kind of shifts a little bit as you go. So you can do it that way. And then you just make as many lines as you feel like on the page. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for now. The next thing you can do, and then from now on, you can use your dominant hand. So using your non-dominant hand opens up more of your brain because your hands relate to the opposite side of the brain. So my right hand connects directly to my left side and my left hand to my right side. So when you use both, you're kind of opening up, firing more neurons, hence the name neurographic. And then after that, you can put some other shapes in there, bigger shapes like, circles or squares or hearts or any kind of geometric shape you want. And again, I'm not going to go through the whole algorithm. I'm just doing the basics. So whatever the big shapes are. And then at this point, at each of the intersections of every single line, let me bring this a little closer. And this is what Sri was talking about earlier. You're going to smooth out all of those edges, those corners. They make V's where they connect, like see how this crosses over and it makes a little kind of a V shape there. So you're just going to turn that into a U and soften all of those edges. And yes, the algorithm says soften all the edges, but like I said, add creative license and do whatever you want. Okay, so you just basically go, and that's the part that's very, it's very meditative, that part, finding all of those intersections. And the concept of that, the symbol, is you're smoothing out those rough corners that are maybe blocks in your life or blocks maybe in your mind or limitations that we maybe put on ourselves. And that opens up the flow. That's the symbol there of opening up that flow of energy. So, and it starts to look a little like neurons, the neurons in your brain as you continue to cross all those lines. So here's an example of one that's done. So you can see at all of those intersections, I just smoothed out all of those cross sections so that everything is flowing. And that's the basics, okay? Now, I'm gonna take it to the next level where we talked about color, and now I'm gonna talk about adding some words to your project. So here's some examples. I was maybe working through something. This is an example of when I did when my dog passed away. So I was just remembering him. So I wrote the lines and then I wrote the words afterwards within all of the tangles. So I did the neurographic and then I added the words. And you can do it many different ways. You can put the words down first and then you could do the tangle around the words. That's what I did here, is I just wrote all of these words. I kind of have a main theme and then I wrote all the words. It's sort of like a brainstorm, neurographic storm, if you want to look at it that way. And so I just wrote all the words and then I did the lines around those words. So this is a little different than the basic methodology where you're using your non-dominant hand. I mean, you could use your non-dominant hand in doing that too. But it's a little different approach when you're adding the words. And then this is another one where I added the words afterwards. That was like a career, I don't want to say a career neurographic storm. I don't know, I have to come up with a better word. There's probably one out there. I did one on love, something I was trying to invite to me, sort of in a creative visualization. So this was actually a creative visualization where I did this was about my move and thinking about what I wanted in my move. And I got pretty much everything I want. So. Okay, this was something different. All right, and then tonight I thought I would show you, I had a couple ideas that I wanted to show you. And this is using the neon gel pens. And these are the Jelly Roll brand, which is the brand I like. I haven't tested all of them, but Sakura is a good brand and I've been happy with them. And in this one, I started with doing this kind of tree, multicolored tree. And in this case, I find, especially with the multicolors, it's difficult. It's more difficult, I find, to fill in all of these because I never know what color to use because there are different colors crossing over. So I find that a little tricky, but you may figure it out better than me. So I left, in this case, I left them open. I didn't follow through with that. I just played around with the lines. And then I added the words afterwards. And this was all around self-care. And then I did another one around self-care. And I did the tree of all one color, but then I played around with color with the words. And I did all the words afterwards. And this was the same theme. So I'll demonstrate these two concepts. And then if we have more time, I'll do another one. I think I'm going to start with this one. Now I started to do all of the connections, but I haven't finished. So I am going to go through here and soften all these V's. Oh, but it's going to take some time. So
what kind of paper is that black paper that you're using?
Good question. Now you can use any cardstock, black cardstock, but this is Canson. And this one actually, if you get Canson, it usually tells you what different mediums it's good for. And this one actually has color pencil, gel pens, metallic markers. So okay. It actually tells you 92 pound. So that's what I'm using. But this would work on, most black, unless gel pens don't work on it. Like some of those porous construction paper that might suck up the ink too much and it might not show up as much. but otherwise, just black cardstock would work fine if you want to try out this. And again,
Okay.
you can do these with, you can make this whole thing in black and white with just a marker and white paper. You can still do the same concept, and the therapeutic part of it will still be effective. I just am playing around to show you what it's like to use some fun gel pens because, you know, something different. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll start with this one. And in this case, I'm not going to worry so much about the non-dominant hand because I do have an idea of what I want to create. And so this is a little more on the artistic side as far as my design goes. And so I'm not following that algorithm by doing the non-dominant hand. And I'm just gonna, I have my colors set up in a rainbow, Roy G. Biv rainbow colors. And I just going to create lines in that order. So let me get this camera back a little bit, and I think I can bring this back down here. Again, you can just start on, and you can do it with your non-dominant hand. I'm just not, so I'm just telling you. But I can start anywhere on any side, and I'm trying to make it sort of a tree. So I go in towards the center, and then I can go anywhere I want, as long as I bring it back out. So you're starting kind of wide, going narrow, and then coming back out wide again, like a tree. Now you can follow along with something similar, or you can, I don't ever expect anyone to necessarily follow exact. Obviously, it's not going to be the same even if you tried. It's not going to be exactly the same, but I encourage you to just do whatever idea you're inspired by, even if it's nothing like what I'm doing. The main thing is just to do something creative and enjoy. And I just keep rotating whatever one I just used to the end of the line. That's how I'm doing it. Let your intuition guide you. Now this one, if you wanted to fill in all of those little cross sections, that would be, there's going to be a gazillion. So it's a good example of why you may decide, oh, maybe I just want to do them in this area, or maybe for this project, I don't want to do it, or. And then with this one, I'm just going to go back to the original one. I just made these little bubbles on top of the tree. So I'm just going to say, do a different one, life or living. And you can even incorporate the words into the design. If it's cursive, you can even do the lines where you write that. So if I was filling in all these, I could go in and fill those as well. And I might actually do the ones within the script because it's all the same. Helps if you can actually scroll. Oh my goodness. That's an R. Can't talk and spell at the same time. I'm just smoothing out, like I said, a few lines, a few of those areas in where I wrote my words because I don't want to try to do all of those in this particular case, but you are welcome to do it however you're inspired. Especially if it's all one color, I would. I've actually done a tree and I filled them all in. So I just find with the multicolored ones, I can't decide which color to do. So I just decided not to do it this time. You know, I think I'm just going to demonstrate just because I know it's hard to see the details. So I'm going to do a large just to make sure that everybody understands what I'm trying to do. So anywhere that the lines cross, see how this is like a V? Like a V there, there's a big V there, and a V there. So the idea is to make them like more like a U. So you just fill in, soften those spaces. And sometimes when you do that, it makes the line a little thicker that's leading into the line. So you can just feed it down until it blends to this single line. So you want kind of a smooth transition to that other line. And sometimes you just make the line a little thicker for a little while and then narrow it out. So hopefully for anybody, hopefully that explains a little better what I'm doing on a smaller scale. All right, so that was pretty easy, like I said, because I'm not filling in all of those little details. Now the next one, I will do it. This one. And in this case, like I said, I started with just the tree of one color, and then I wrote in all of the words. I just wove them into the tree. I'm going to show you that one. And this one I made a little bit more separate branches, so I'm going to show you that. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I think about how sound is different wavelengths. So some waves are tall and some waves are short. So I just think about that as I'm creating this. Sometimes I do a really tight curve. Sometimes I do a big curve. Sometimes I do they're all the same. You know, I try to make it the same or all the way through. And sometimes I try to vary it where some big waves and small waves. So really just let yourself play on the page.
Shawna,
Yeah.
In drawing with my left hand, I did like one of those random ones. If I have kind of a sharpish corner on my line, do I round that too?
So you're saying like, let me see if I'm understanding what you mean. So like, if, for example, this is kind of like this is a square angle. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it with my left hand. It wasn't an intentional square, but I do have kind of 90-degree.
Yeah, you can soften that up. You can also even play around by adding more lines. Like if it kind of goes like that, you can soften a little bit that way and then fill those in. So
And we can just
yeah, you can add and whatever your intuition tells you. So you can embellish at any point. Once you do that first line, then you can play around with it. Like for example, with this one, you know, after I did the main parts of it, I added some of these small little squiggles in there. I added some little, you know, bubbles. You can create all sorts of fun embellishments to it. So if a line, because I've had that before, oh, it's like maybe I had a little jog to it. For example, here, let me show you. Here, see how it's got like a little peak there? And I don't really like how that looks. So if I want to, I can just pretend like, oh, that was another line that just went to the edge. So you just play around with it until it's doing what you want. This one here is kind of wonky. I can continue this off there and this one off there. And then, you know, I kind of resolved it. So let your intuition guide you and what you think it needs.
that helps because otherwise it tends to draw attention to itself, which you don't necessarily want.
Right, yeah, because that's a conflict point. So the idea is to not have conflict. So those things that draw your attention go, that's kind of bothering me. Just find a way, whatever makes sense to you, to resolve it. Usually at the beginning, it looks kind of messy, but the more and more I play with it, I smooth out, I resolve some of those issues that don't feel right to me. And then by the end, it starts to just be more and more calm feeling, if that makes sense. You feel the calm of the whole piece. So yeah, play around with it until it resolves itself in how you feel about it, if that makes sense. It's okay, we can take detours. That's creative license too. So, all right.
Shawna,
Yeah,
can I ask you about the marker you're using or the pen?
sure.
What is it?
This is Jelly Roll. So all of these
Okay.
I'm using are Jelly Roll, and they're made by, they're a Japanese company, Sakura.
Laura,
One
yeah.
of my favorite Jelly Rolls.
Yeah.
I will say that I do love the Uniball Signo, is a white marker that I use a lot as well. So I'm just trying to stick with the Jelly Roll since I'm using the other one's Jelly Roll. But
Yeah, we haven't had much luck with the jelly rolls. Maybe we've left them too long and they've dried out. But yeah. Okay, good. We have those. We'll see what we can do.
and I've had problems with the gel pens drying out, well, other brands too. So I don't know. I think it might be the nature of gel pens if they're not stored
Yeah.
properly. I also find that some of them just sitting, they'll leak inside the pen, and even with Jelly Rolls. So I don't know. I think it might be a nature of gel pens in general. And
Yeah.
sometimes I've tried to do all the tricks to getting them started again, putting them in warm water and all sorts of things. And I haven't had a lot of luck, to be honest. So they can be tricky. So if anybody has any gel pen miracles they want to share about either the best gel pens ever or how to get them going once they stop, please feel free to share that tonight when we do the show and tell, because I think everybody would be appreciate knowing if you're interested in gel pens, they are a lot of fun. But I think there are some limitations with them, I think. Now I'm trying to make these look like branches. So I'm making the wiggles a little wider, closer to the base, just like a natural branch would be. And then I taper them off as I go. So I just try to shorten my squiggles as I go out. So I'm just pointing that out in case you are doing this particular project, that might be helpful.
One tip I had, Shawna, was just to lay the pens down flat rather than up the way.
Yes.
I don't know whether that's in just the jelly roll pens or pens in general. So I'm just starting to, instead of having them all upright, just lying them down the way. So I'm going to across the way.
Yes, and I agree with you. And that's, I do that with all my pens, because the thing is with markers or gel pens or whatever, whichever direction you store them. Now with gel pens, if I was going to store them, I would store them with the tip down, but the problem with that is then they can leak. So I agree that horizontal is probably a better way, and the package that they came in, that's how they're stored. I think that keeps it from either spilling out, or sometimes it can fall back the other way, and then you get an big air pocket in there that's impossible to get out. So that's a
Thank
really
you. Yep, that's
um,
helpful.
yeah, and with markers, it's similar in that if you store them down, all of the ink can settle down in the bottom part of the pen, which can cause it to come out depending on the tip and how secure that is. But if I'm going to store it, I would prefer to bring the ink towards the tip, because I want it to work. Because if you store it this way, then, and the ink settles to the back of the pen, then it might be dry. So
Yeah.
I do recommend for long-term storage, when you're using it, it's easier to maybe have it in a little carrier like this. But then when I store it, I store it sideways, and that's a good suggestion. Today.
That's lovely.
Thank you. Okay. Now, I didn't leave a lot of open space for words. So some of the words have to be small, or I can put them on top of the branches, and that's fine. But if you're thinking about, oh, I want to add words, you might want to keep a little more open space if you're trying to make the words inside the lines. But I just used whatever it came out to be. So I just filled in where I just made it smaller if I needed to. So I had some bigger, some smaller. And again, I'm going to just follow my little Roy G. Bev, because I'm OCD that way.
Shawna, are you, it's Sky here. Are you going to do the lovely jellyfish that you showed us last month?
I could do the jellyfish next time. And then this one is similar to that tree that I had showed, but sure, I could do the jellyfish.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Okay,
Thanks.
I was just thinking, where is my jellyfish so I can show you? But I'm gonna write a note, jellyfish. Good, because I didn't know what I was gonna do for next. But I'll show you an example of another tree one that I did, and then it turned into be, this one was a tree that I did. And this one, I think I started with the circles, and then I just wound the tree around the circles. So I might do this one next month too, a similar one of that. And then the jellyfish that she's referring to is this. So we'll play around with those next time. And I do recommend that you make sure to keep them capped when you're not using them. So don't leave the caps off for any longer than necessary. And that's true for markers, of course, too, but that might help a little bit. And I did little themes on the branches, so you can do it however you want, but that was kind of fun to have all the words a little related in some way. down. Oh, set. Tone the light down a little bit. Well, I just added these little globes and they kind of just make a spiral, and I just break the line, and I just try not to break the lines at the same spot. So that's how I did those little.
Shawna, could you scoot that down a
Oh, yeah,
little
thank you.
too high? I can't, now we can see it. Thank you.
It helps if it's actually on view. Thank you.
Thanks.
Student driver. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, but.
Shawna, I have a technical question.
Uh-oh.
You know you're doing it, so you'll be able to answer it. How are you what are you using to actually show us the artwork? Because it's not on Zoom the way we're seeing it. It's
Right. So I have a camera. I have a camera set up that's rigged above my workstation.
Mhm.
So looking down at like a 35 millimeter, like a EOS. So it's a separate rig. And then I use the software that's to run the camera and then I share that screen.
Thank you. Do you know the software or?
Well, it goes with the camera, so it's
Oh, okay.
it's a Canon M50, so
Alright.
it's there's a driver to help you use it as to be controlled by the computer, but it's specific to the camera, I think. So
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you.
you're welcome. And it's because I zoomed in so you could see, and then I lost track of where I was showing you. And I like to do things in odd numbers, so I could stop there with just the 3 circles, which I think I actually like, or else I could do 5. But yeah, I think I kind of like for this one the 3. So, and then now at this point, I'll go in and do what I call the knitting. So just going in and smoothing out my V's. And I'm not going to do all of them because that would take the whole, you know, a long time. Not the whole evening, but it's, I don't want you guys, it's like watching paint dry for you guys probably. So, and let's see, it's 8:09 now, so trying to think if I wanted to throw one more. I think I might just throw one more in. So that's what I would do. I would just go ahead and fill in all of these white ones. And I will have this next time. I will finish that and I will post it on Meetup, the picture, and then I'll also show it to you next time, the finished project. So you can see I really did it. I really like that look. But that is, like I said, it is kind of tricky when you have the multiple colors. I did it with this one and I found it, I didn't know, I didn't really, I found myself wondering what color, which of these colors would I started to try to do it on this one, and then I did it a little bit where the globes were, but then I started realizing anywhere else it was, first of all, a lot. It was a lot. But also I thought, well, if it's a blue crossing an orange crossing a yellow, which color do I use to fill it in? So it was just too much for me to figure out. So I just stuck with the globes and did whatever the color was. Let's see. Somebody's not muted. I'm still trying to see if I can figure out the name.
Yeah, it was Willie.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's one of them anyway.
It sounds like a TV. Okay.
Shawna, it's me. Let me. I don't know why it keeps coming.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how they spontaneously do that, but I do know if you hit the space button, like that will, but usually when you release the space button, it goes back to muted. So if you're leaning on the space button, that could do it at your computer, but I don't, that's the only thing I can think of, but I'm not really sure, to be honest. That, like I said, with technology, I know just enough to get myself in trouble. And my brother will attest that I don't know enough to get out of trouble. And he usually has to bail me out. And I do have a little bit of a technology curse, so. Sometimes when I'm at the cash register and it's not working, I just step back a couple feet and it works. So, I said I could go into like a an opposing country's technology room and just make everything go haywire. And I would be a pretty good weapon. I shouldn't say that because everything's working right now, so I should be nice, but. Okay, so I'm just gonna go in and fill all of those little areas, but you can see how much nicer that, I mean, it just has I love the look of it when you connect all of those. It smooths it out, it gives it a more polished look. So visually, I think it looks appealing, but the technique of doing it is really relaxing, I find personally. So try that out. And then the next one, I'm just going to do a simple one, kind of like I did one of these brainstorms where I have maybe it in the center and then I just go out from there. And I'm just going to do it with white. We'll simplify and I'll use my Uniball signal. I feel like this might be by Sakura also, but let's see. Oh, no, this is Mitsubishi. Let me not get this wrong. It's Mitsubishi Pencil Co. But it's also made in Japan. I find Japan has a lot of good art supplies. Okay, so this one you would just pick something. And again, it can be a phrase. It doesn't have to just be a word, but it can be a word. So let's just use, I'm just going to say earth. I'm going to make a globe in the middle. Of course, this one's not going to work while I'm. Thank you. My pen was, it might be getting low, actually, this one. Okay. I'm going to use, that one's not wanting to cooperate. So speaking of gel pens that don't want to write. And now I'm just going to, I'm going to do my neurographic lines and maybe I'll even do it with my left hand this time. And I'm just going to intertwine around my earth. Because I want to connect it to all of these neurons. All right. I have to say, I've really loved seeing all the photos people have posted for the Neurographic. It seems like a lot more than usual even for the Neurographica. So I think that this is one of those, sort of gateway arts that, I mean, it's easy enough that, just about anybody can do. And it's not as intimidating as a lot of other types of drawing. So I think it's a great way to start developing your muscle memory and your confidence with drawing, because you can create some beautiful things with very limited skill to start with, and then you can build your skill. Just filling these in, I mean, that takes a little bit of dexterity, and you build that as you go. And then as you build that, then you get more and more confident. And then as you see the cool things you can create, that builds that confidence. And that's what one of the things that I love about this particular art is it has so many aspects of it. It's healing in and of itself using the algorithm, but it also just is such a great way to introduce yourself to drawing or doodling. With limited supplies, I mean, you don't need all these fancy gel pens. You can even just a pencil and a napkin. I mean, of course, I always recommend using nice paper because some of my favorite art pieces are on bad paper. And then I'm sad. So I learned my lesson. I think I have an example of one that I did. It was actually one of these. It was one of these verbal ones, and I did it on love, and it turned out, I think, really cool. Like, I was really happy with it, but it was on this, substandard scratch paper. It was like the graph paper, and I was just demonstrating, and then I'm like, oh man, I wish that was on good paper. So I cut it out and put it in my journal anyway, so that's fine. But from then on, I decided I'm going to just put it on paper that at least is good enough that I can add it to a journal or something if I want to. Oh, one thing about gel pens, I'll remind you, is some of them don't dry as fast. So if I stick my hand, if I put a lot down and then I stick my hand in it and I move my hand around, I can get these blotches. So just be careful because they can take longer to dry. So you can put a piece of paper down if you like on top, to protect it from your hand, but just be aware that can happen. If you don't like that, then, you might want to, like I said, either let it dry. You can use a little heat tool or something, or just put paper down where your hand is. Or like I said, let it dry, because even if you put paper down, you could smear it. So, all right. Now I'm going to fill all those in, but I wanted to get my other words in since I'm running out of time. Okay, we're getting close to, so I got 5 more minutes just to play. So you get the picture, hopefully. So I'm going to wrap up since we have a big group and we might have a lot of shares. So, so yeah, you can play around with adding words, adding color, adding different kinds of paper or pens. The bottom line is just use your intuition to let it guide you and where you go and see what you come up with. And I'm excited to see what you guys have come up with tonight. And if you didn't finish it, that's fine. You can post the picture on meetup.com or you can bring it next time. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Healing Art After Hours. You can download materials related to this topic, including PDF notes of PowerPoint presentations, at creatingspacecoastal.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you found this content helpful, and join me for the next video here at my Creating Space Coastal channel, where I hope to inspire you to create space in your life for fun. Thank you.